2020 feels like a pivotal year in HR. I think the expectations about the problems we were expected to solve became very different.
I'm a capitalist, and I believe the data. Building first teams leads to better business outcomes, building better products.
A lot of CEOs and other leaders actually shifted their position quite dramatically about DEI, whereas a few years ago,
They wouldn't have even dared to say that out loud.
no way.
You know, a couple years ago at all the conferences, and people were saying, you're not going to get replaced by AI.
Right.
You're going to get replaced by somebody who's better at using it. Well, I think that's wrong. So many of our jobs are going to get replaced by AI, and we need to start talking about it.
Welcome to the General Podcast, the show where there's no host, no script, just the best builders talking about what they do and why they do it.
Anna, it's so nice to see you.
It's so nice to be here with you.
It's been a while. How is life?
Well, I just started a new chapter after almost 10 years at Asana.
Congratulations.
I stepped away last month. I celebrated by getting braces. And in case anyone is wondering, I highly do not recommend getting braces ever. I had no idea. I did not have braces as a child.
Oh, well, there's never time that's too late, right?
I'm 1 week in, so.
All right. Well,
we'll
they look great.
Oh, thanks.
So, Anna, do you remember how we met the first time?
So I am very clear on the origin story of our supper club, but I don't know the origin story of you and me. So,
it goes back before supper club.
Oh my gosh. Okay, tell me.
Okay, so it was a Y Combinator event.
Okay.
I was very new into my role as my first chief people officer role, because I had made a career change.
This must have been a long time ago.
It was a long time ago. I think it was like 2018 or probably around 2018.
Not that long ago. Okay.
Yeah. And we were invited to come talk to some founders.
Oh.
And you had just come off a total compensation overhaul that you had led. Mm-hmm. And I, as a newbie in the chief people officer role, was so impressed with how you handled it and how much confidence you had. And anyway, I've always looked up to you since then. And I've always really appreciated your guidance.
Completely remember that event. It was a long, thin table, and we were getting into it.
Exactly.
And I'll never forget when I got to Asana. I asked around like, well, how many engineers are we trying to hire? What's going on? Oh, we're just trying to hire as many great engineers as we possibly can. Well, how do we do compensation? Well, when a manager wants to make a comp change, we look at the compensation. So I was like, okay, we're going to put a little bit more structure and goals around that.
Yeah. Yeah.
I recently, like a couple of years ago, went to, I grew up in Greenwich, Connecticut, and I went to the house that I grew up in.
Oh, wow.
And, in your memory, I hadn't been there in 20, 25 years. And in your memory, it's like this great big house and, like the garden and, it looms larger than life. And I think that I have a similar feeling about our supper club.
Yes.
So life for many of us, but particularly for HR people, is like life before the pandemic and after the pandemic.
Yes.
And before the pandemic, we started this group where we would have dinner once a quarter. And in my memory, I'm going to land the plane with regard to the house I grew up in. Like in my mind, that was like such a perfect set of dinners, right?
Yes.
Because we would go around the room or the table at a restaurant, and everyone got to say, here's my problem. And people would opine on it and say, here's what I would do, or here's what I've done, or, and give guidance. And then we would go to the next person and the next person. And we just kept going until there was like no person left standing. And we were exhausted, and we'd gone through all of the bottles of wine. And it was really, really useful and a place to be vulnerable and super practical, right? And we got the answers. And then fast forward to January 2020.
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is I only made it to one supper club.
Oh, interesting.
Before, so it was in Q4 or maybe early Q1.
Yeah.
So I made it to one supper club and was barely getting to know many of the people in the group. And then I still remember, I think it was Joe Dennis at Pinterest. Yes.
She pinged, she's like, we've got a problem. We're shutting down travel here. What are y'all doing? And then we immediately moved into this mode where we were sharing everything.
Everything.
Like, here's the emails that we sent today to shut down this office. Here's what we're doing here. And it was like this open source group of, let's say, 10 of us doing that. At one point, I think we were talking every day. Then we moved to every week. Then George Floyd got murdered, and we supported each other and our people through that. You know, I feel like we kept those calls going for the better part of 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's right.
And then at the end, there was like maybe 2 or 3 of us that
Just
were
a
left.
few of us left. So maybe we backtrack a little bit to the beginning of the pandemic, because I just remember feeling, again, this was my first chief people officer role. I think I had been in the role for about 2 years at that point. I remember feeling so overwhelmed by the idea that we had to figure out what were we going to do with thousands of people who had been used to coming into the office every day. They weren't set up for work at home. They were relying on us for guidance, and our CEOs were relying on us for guidance about what we were going to do in terms of vaccine policies, how people were going to work, what are working parents going to do, how do we support them? I mean, it felt like this incredible responsibility. And I cannot imagine having to go through that alone. And I think the thing that saved me, and the thing that saved many of us throughout that time, was having this community. And there were probably 8 or 10 of us most times. But this community where we got to know each other really well. We trusted each other so much. We openly shared things that you normally wouldn't share out of necessity. Like even to the point where we were sharing our comms. Like, what are we
in real time?
What are we saying? What are we saying about this? I don't know that you're making it bigger than it was, because for me it was so important and critical to have at that time. And I'm super grateful for the relationships we all formed during that time as well.
Looking back, you know, I like to say there's like really no terrible experiences. Because they just turn into funny stories. At least that's what I told myself when I was online dating. Like, there's no such thing as a bad date, because they all turn into good stories. The power of that group, I still remember, you know, something would come up at our executive team as it related to how we are handling the pandemic. And Dustin, our CEO, would say, well, why don't you ask your supper club and see what other people are doing? Yeah. And it became a thing.
It did.
And gosh, thank goodness we had each other.
Thank goodness. So the pandemic, fast forward a couple months, and then you brought up George Floyd. And that summer was kind of wild, because we were managing through the pandemic, but then all of a sudden, all of these questions came up about DEI. And I don't know what your experience was like at the time, but I remember feeling like there was this incredible demand all of a sudden to have all of these DEI programs, which many of us in the chief people officer role had been asking for a lot of resources to fund DEI initiatives for a long time. And I think it was always challenging to get the resources for it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it was like, you know, there was a light switch that was expected to be turned on that, you know, quite frankly, in a lot of ways, it was great. It was like a good wake up call that, like, okay, finally everybody sees, finally these CEOs are seeing the need for more investment in DEI. But I think it's, you know, the flip side of that is it's not something you can build overnight. It takes time. It takes resources. It takes energy, attention from people across all departments, not just the people function.
Asana had, you know, fun fact, I joined the company in 2016, and Matt Kohler from our board actually called me. I had known him from another life, and said, hey, I think you should talk to these guys. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, that's just too small. Yeah. That's a recruiting job. I don't know how to do that job. He's like, Anna, they're less than 100 people, and they've already hired their first head of diversity, inclusion, and belonging.
Wow.
And so I was like, oh, that's interesting. That's putting your money where your mouth is. And the founders of Asana had a really a strong belief that it's such a lofty mission, help humanity thrive, right? Like, help humanity thrive by enabling the world's teams to work together effortlessly. Like, the biggest sentence I could imagine. And they're like, well, humanity is diverse. So if if we're going to achieve this mission, this is what our workforce needs to look like. And everyone that isn't, it's not enough that it's, we've got good representation. There has to be like deep, deep belonging. And this is a very, very long game. I actually felt in that moment when George Floyd was murdered and so many people were looking to their leaders to say, help me understand this, help me interpret it, and really also, how do I feel? I feel like at Asana, we had already invested in so many programs and dialogue around it. So I felt a little bit better in that way.
Okay. Yeah, I'm actually curious, did Asana, if you can share,
sure,
did Asana continue its investment in DEI initiatives? I think the thing that is really hard for, I think, not just people leaders, but people who work at companies that hadn't invested in DEI, and then all of a sudden that was sort of ripped away overnight, or at least it feels that way. And to be fair, I left my chief people officer role at Grammarly in fall of 2023.
Okay.
And then I took an 18-month sabbatical. So I was actually gone.
Nice timing. Nice timing.
Yeah. By design. No, I'm just kidding. I was actually gone when this whiplash happened.
Yeah.
So I wasn't, when I left, it was still very much, we were investing a lot into DEI initiatives, but that changed. So I'm curious what you saw.
So this is actually an area I'm quite optimistic about, because at first it was a scary and confusing time when the administration came out with, sort of like, felt like targeting different companies and depending on how much revenue you had tied up with it's a very unknown time. What is legal? And at Asana, we had an amazing partnership with our legal team to help explore this. We went down what I thought was a very reasoned path. Mm-hmm. Those core fundamentals did not change, right? Like, we believe that investing in these areas will help us be a better business. Mm-hmm. Nothing changed about that. And nothing changed about our motivations, the outcomes, none of that. We definitely reconfigured things. Mm-hmm. We renamed some things. Mm-hmm. And I actually think for some of the program managers on that team, it gave them a different calling card, right? Like, it put them into the organizational effectiveness team so that they were leading in conversations with our business leaders to say, what are y'all trying to achieve and how can I help?
Yeah.
And obviously we are threading through ensuring like strong diversity, strong inclusion, strong belonging throughout the whole thing. The calling card changed, which I actually think made them even more effective.
Oh, that's great.
So I am pessimistic about a lot of things right now, but that's something I feel good about.
Yeah. Well, and where do you see things going
on that front
moving forward? Not just at Asana, but I think generally. Do you think we'll get back to a place where, because from my perspective at least, and a lot of, I didn't take a lot of calls with CEOs while I was on my sabbatical, but I took a couple.
Yep.
And one thing that really surprised me is how strongly anti-DEI many of them were, to the point where they didn't, some of them didn't want to talk to anyone who had pronouns on their LinkedIn profiles, like they refused to talk to them, or they made it very, very clear up front that if that was something that was important, that, it wasn't the right place. And so I'm just curious where you see things going, and maybe my perspective is also like more dramatic than the shift has actually been. I don't know if that's the case, but it does seem like there's been a pretty big shift. Obviously, there are some changes that more programs are coming under legal threat, and so people are changing names and changing the focus of some of the programs. But my perspective, at least, is that a lot of CEOs and other leaders actually shifted their position quite dramatically about DEI, whereas a few years ago,
they wouldn't have even dared to say that out loud.
No way. And I think part of it is, there are some leaders who they'll do what they need to do to get the talent, right?
Well, so do you think some of that, though, is part and parcel of Silicon Valley leaders sort of kowtowing to the administration?
Hard to say it's not.
Yeah.
I think people are afraid. I think, I think people are nervous about being, when I say people, I mean a lot of leaders, a lot of CEOs are nervous about being left out or feeling like they're persona non grata, and some of them are legitimately worried for their business.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's just been a massive shift on a national level, and I think that's resulted in this.
Look, I'm a capitalist, and I believe the data.
Mm-hmm.
I believe the data around building diverse teams leads to better business outcomes, building better products. You know, I spent the last 10 years working for the founder of Asana, who was truly playing a long game.
Mm-hmm.
So in the years where I was upset because the numbers didn't move meaningfully, he was like, I'm not worried about the year. I'm worried about the decade, and I'm worried about the decades after.
That's great.
And so I think most people are also capitalists, and I think
Yeah.
that the data will prevail.
Yeah.
So I'm curious,
Yeah.
Has what's been going on in the macro environment and with the administration impacted how you're showing up as a leader? In particular, you know, you've started a new chapter with a new role. Like, has there been a conscious change for you?
I wouldn't say there's been a conscious change. I'd say I tend to lead with my personal values, and I try to work with CEOs and companies that align with my personal values. I wouldn't, especially at this stage in my career, I just wouldn't go somewhere if I didn't think there was a values match.
Yep.
I wouldn't say that they've changed so much. I will say, I think we have like a number of our team members are facing some really massive challenges right now personally, and I think it's hard to ignore that. You know, whether that's communities that have been targeted by the current administration. I just think there's an uneasiness that makes it more difficult for people to be really focused on work when they have to worry about these existential issues. And so we've been having some roundtable conversations, and just I've been engaging with a lot of our team members where possible and where appropriate, made some changes to our policies or our benefits to make sure that we are keeping those people in mind. Because I do think it's a really scary time for a lot of people.
I think that the biggest thing that I have shifted on is sort of regulating myself and not being reactive. And not just for like, I don't know, a sense of calmness, but the administration's behavior has taught us that that's important, right? Like something that is said on a random Tuesday should not prompt your behavior on a Wednesday. Like 100%. Let's just take a moment. And just because we've lived our entire lives taking that as like the word, what comes out of the president, like that, that's just not happening now. So let's take a breath and let's wait.
Yeah. And I think contingency planning, being prepared for whatever may come, because we don't know what will happen, and we don't know how much time we'll have to address it when it does happen. So lots of contingency planning, which we got very good about during the pandemic.
We sure did. Should we shift to AI?
Let's.
Because, can't have a conversation
without AI. Definitely not here in San Francisco.
No.
And I'm 6 months into my new role at Retool. And
congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Yes. And, we are working on some initiatives to make sure we're utilizing the best and most useful AI tools across the company.
Yep.
I'd be curious what you all did at Asana. I think we actually were you on a panel about that at Transform this year, or was that some?
Sure,
okay.
That sounds right.
Yeah. So you're the AI expert.
Oh, of course.
Yes, great.
Yes.
So tell me and everybody else what we should be doing.
I've been out of Asana for almost 4 weeks, so that you quickly lose your expertise given the pace of things. But if I look over the last couple of years, I'll share some of the things that we did that helped move us forward in a lot of different ways. The first thing I would say is we had leadership that demonstrated openly their enthusiasm, their willingness to experiment, their willingness to share things in very casual channels, which then started attracting very early adopters to those channels.
Right.
The second thing we both did and learned really early, people who are leading this charge inside of our companies are not, how do I say this? Let's be open to where that leadership can come from.
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily, and in fact, for us, did not come from the executive team or even like the broader leadership team. So I feel like one of the things that we did that was really important was creating space or like, let's call it a garden where those people that were the early adopters could rise.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then identify them through a whole host of different means and then incent them in some way or encourage them to activate others.
That's great.
It's not necessarily your superstars that are doing that. It's just the people who are tinkering and who happen to be interested and allowing that to happen. It was humbling to me because it came from so many different places. My job became really easy because I just needed to, we have a people team, all hands. We're going to spend that whole all hands. I'm going to put these two individuals, they're going to lead it.
Oh, that's great.
It doesn't matter what I have to say. It doesn't matter what these are the ones that I want everyone to listen to. And if you can get those folks to activate others, then it starts becoming more like wildfire.
Yeah.
Another cool thing that we did really early on that I loved. So we did these like mini hackathons that were not, they were not engineering focused. They were open to the whole company. And one of the things that came out of one of those hackathons was essentially like a little mini Asana app store where employees who were building bots could alpha and beta them and everyone could have access to them. And they, included like, hey, here's how like a bot to help you prepare for a sales call, like obvious things like that. But also we published a bot of like, hey, here's how you write your own self-review for the performance. We didn't just say, we are okay with you using these tools to run the performance management system. We actually encourage you to do it. And eventually we're going to expect you.
Yeah.
One of my favorites was this guy that worked for me used the bots that we had built to write his self-review, had it written, and then commented. He provided his own commentary on what the chatbot had written.
Oh, wow.
Like, meaning like, I think that's a little bit overblown, or, oh yeah, I did achieve that. I forgot how impressive that was. And it was just like, it brought humor to something that is usually like so,
Yeah.
I think really importantly, I worked very closely with our CIO to just in the background support all of this. He was the face of it and he was the technologist of it, but he was very conscious that this is human behavior. And the AI council that we had to help move this forward was a deep partnership. It was actually a joy to do it.
That's great. It sounds much more effective than you see a lot of CEOs posting on LinkedIn, for example, like, I told everybody today, start using AI or leave. And it seems like a more effective way to implement it into the organization.
I mean, another thing that we did was at the very beginning, we talked a lot about prioritizing curiosity in our hiring.
Yeah.
Because those are the folks that are but eventually we took it to the next level as it related to screening for candidates. You don't need to demonstrate to me that you've transformed your function, right? Like using AI. Like we're still early days. Yeah. But if you can't show me that you've played around a little bit or you've started to wonder how this might impact your job, you're probably not the right.
Yeah.
I will never forget the first candidate. By the time a candidate for an HR position comes to me, they're pretty far along in the process. And it was like a memorable moment for me where I rejected a candidate because they were not embracing it. And I thought, you're in too critical of a role and I need you to be influencing and leading others. And he was very transparent. He's like, yeah, it's not really for me. And I was like, well, then this place really isn't.
Yeah. So I have a junior in high school. I know
Okay.
you have a senior
Yep.
in high school,
Yep.
and so we're starting to think about college. And he's also, by the way, he's a contrarian and he speaks his mind very openly. And so, he's asking a lot of questions like, why do I need to know this information? What is the value this information is providing me? When am I ever going to use this information that I'm memorizing? And it's a very good question. And so when I start thinking about the investment of college for my kids, I'm asking myself, which universities are embracing this? Because you hear a lot about the universities that are coming down on AI, that are they're looking for AI in students' work. And you don't hear a lot about which schools are embracing it. Now, I think university is like, I would expect universities certainly to be preparing their students for the workforce, which is inevitably going to include AI. But I think we have to start even younger, as scary as that might sound. I think if we're not starting at least in middle school and high school, we're not setting people up for success when they enter the workforce. Because I think it's just, and we're at the early stages of it now, but I think 3-4 years from now, even sooner, it's just going to be expected that you have used or know how to use AI tools.
So this topic is, especially the college transition is, very near and dear to both of our hearts. And I spent a lot of time over the last few months touring college campuses. To every tour I went, I asked the question, how are y'all thinking about, and what is your philosophy on preparing these kids for the world, especially these freshmen coming in?
Yeah.
I mean, it is going to be a brand new place.
Yeah.
And it was a little terrifying. I would say half the schools responded by immediately going, the teachers have rules and that's considered cheating and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's actually not my question.
Mm-hmm.
Like, my question is, how are y'all, they didn't even understand the question.
Yeah.
It's a little scary. The best answer I got, and I'll just shout out for Barnard, was vulnerable and honest. We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
We are starting to have conversations. We know we need to figure this out quicker.
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to get the right people in the room to have the conversation and be curious about it. But we're starting with what do we know that we don't know?
Yeah.
And I thought that was that's as good as we can do. But going to more in a more practical way, the workforce, we were talking about the slope of the curve for the unemployment rate for new college grads for everyone, but in particular for computer science majors, and how that slope is steeper than journalism, right? So that is mindful, and I'm mindful of that, and I'm not necessarily optimistic about it. For the short term, I think it's going to be pretty painful.
Yeah.
Some of the headlines and stats that are coming out around the long-term unemployed and how many knowledge workers are entering that chapter. Or, there was a fascinating, back in, I think it was June or July, Dario from Anthropic in his op-ed and said, this is coming.
Yeah.
We need to be prepared. We cannot be Pollyanna about it. And it is not, unemployment checks are not going to solve this problem. We need to talk about it more systemically. And this is probably a podcast for smarter people than me, but a couple of years ago at all the conferences, and people were saying, your job's not going to you're not going to get replaced by AI.
Right.
You're going to get replaced by somebody who's better at using it. Well, I think that's wrong. I think so many of our jobs are going to get replaced by AI, and we need to start talking about it.
Yeah. I mean, and I think the challenge too is for AI companies, oftentimes we're asking people to build the products that, may replace some jobs or may replace a portion of the work that ends up resulting in fewer people needed in the workplace, right? And that doesn't mean necessarily that company's going to do layoffs or that the company doesn't need the people they have today, but it may mean they hire much fewer people in the future than they would have in previous times before AI.
So does that come up inside your company as it relates to, sort of the mission and the impact? Or
It does. And I think it's hard to your point, I think it's hard to deny that AI will likely take some jobs. I think that's very difficult to deny. And I think it's almost like we're lying to ourselves if we try to deny that AI will take some jobs. But I also think a lot of it's about the framing of it, and I don't mean framing like spinning, but I mean for just like how we talk about it, what words we use, what the concepts we talk about. And there are a lot of tools that make things better, more efficient, that take away a lot of the grunt work that nobody really likes doing.
Yeah.
And so my hope is that, you can scale more with fewer people, which is, as a business and for a capitalist, that's a good thing. But I don't think it takes away some of the fear people are feeling and some of the moral obligation maybe to humanity and to like protect the future of our economy. I mean, I think we don't know what's going to happen is the real answer. We don't know for sure. And so I think it's important to engage in conversations around that and be really open and honest about, the fact that we don't necessarily know and how we're going to handle it and how we think about it.
Over the last few months, as I've spoken, I've tried to be really direct with my people team at Asana and have said, I don't know how to read, I don't know how to tell the future, predict the future, but if I were a betting person, which I am, I would say in general, these teams that I lead and teams like them are going to be smaller and as impactful in a very short order, particularly in our industry that embraces and is being pushed very hard in that direction. So, but that's the pessimist in me. The optimist in me is, this is not the only industry. And I think, this much experience, can make you extremely useful somewhere else. Yeah. And the age-old question of like, whose responsibility is this? Is this government? Is this the company? Is this the individual? Well, I do think I personally believe that government plays a really important role here. And by government, I mean broadly, the schools that our children are touring to go to college. But at the end of the day, you got to be the CEO of your own life. And if you have to manufacture the curiosity, like this is the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
When I say to my team, like, hey, let's be ready for this, I think that they intellectually hear me. And I think that they appreciate the directness and the frankness. Yeah. But that's different than turning it into action or actually getting your head around, like, what does this mean for me?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think there's a tension between what AI enables us to do, like in the workplace, like there are so many more possibilities, right? And it's just personally, I feel like it's made work better and easier a lot of times to just have those tools available.
Sure. And
I think am I scared of where we might be going? Sure. I worry about that. There's a tension there. I also feel like it's hard to control that. And we don't know. We don't know if it's going to be the greatest thing ever or the worst thing ever. And I think that's part of the scariness of this time is, there are incredible possibilities ahead that AI enables. And there are also pretty dark things that AI enables as well. So
would you advise your 25-year-old self to enter the field?
Ooh, that's a good question. This is one of those, it is one of the biggest, I think certainly the biggest shift we've probably had, the biggest shift we've had in our lifetime, other than, the introduction of the internet, right? And you and I both were alive pre-internet time and remember what that was like. And just because I'm a generally curious person and am excited by these things, I probably, even if I advised myself not to, I probably would have done it anyway. But yeah, I mean, when I talk to, younger kids, whether it's like nieces and nephews who are graduating from college or recent graduates who are kids of my friends, and they ask for career advice, I absolutely encourage them to get into it. I think it's a wave that you kind of want to be a part of because it has such incredible energy and such great possibility. I also think it requires a lot of responsibility by the right people to make sure that it doesn't go off the rails.
Yeah.
And that's the part that scares me a little bit, is I don't know if that necessarily exists. So,
well, especially bringing it back to the earlier part of the conversation where we see so many leaders in technology right now, maybe showing their true colors with this administration, that combination is terrifying.
Yeah. That and then just to come full circle, tying it back to your the discussion about DEI and diversity, and Dustin's point about humanity being diverse. We've all seen plenty of examples of bias in AI results, right? And so when you don't have a diverse team building the tools that are, guiding us into the future, I think it's just very difficult to get anything other than bias out of it.
Yeah. Shifting gears for 1 second. I'm super curious. Like, you're 9 months into your new gig?
It's like 6.
Okay.
Yes.
So I'm stretching. What are the biggest challenges? What are you trying to solve for? What was a surprise? Like, give it to me.
Yeah. So one of the reasons I took the role was because I was really excited about the opportunity. Retool has a great team, great products that customers love. And there was, it was made pretty clear to me that there was an opportunity to invest more in the people function. The first 6 months has been really fun and interesting. I brought on a number of team members. We are basically revising most of the people programs within a very short period of time. Compensation, equity, performance, all the good things. So that's been the biggest focus for the past 6 months. And then I think a lot of my attention is going to focus in the new year is going to focus toward, making sure that we're investing in the right AI initiatives internally and preparing our team and hiring the right team. I mean, that's, we just did a people team offsite, and a lot of our work was focused on how do we incorporate AI into all of the people programs and everything, all the work we're doing.
Yeah.
And, the good news is there are some great tools out there, and it enables a lot more than we were able to do without it. But it is work, and there's a lot of change management that goes along with that. So that's where my focus has been.
Are you able to differentiate from those that are leaning in with enthusiasm and curiosity, and those that are maybe a little?
Yeah. And I think, most what I've seen is people leaning in with enthusiasm and curiosity. And I think what I see is when people understand the value it can bring, just how it makes their life easier. I mean, we were opening a new office recently in London, and there was a challenge connecting to the network, and the office was supposed to be opening and, the next day or whatever. And somebody got on ChatGPT and was like, how do I solve this problem? And problem solved, right? And so it's like when you realize that there are these answers at your fingertips, and I think that goes to my point about, my son not understanding why he has to memorize this information. The reality is it's no longer really about the information you hold. And now it's shifting more toward, do you know how to ask the right questions? Yep. And that, I think, is the skill set that we really need to be building a lot more.
I have a younger brother. My younger brother's like 50. My younger brother builds homes. That's what he does. And he's not like he actually does it from scratch with his hands. He built a home on the Oregon coast, by himself over the last 18 months. It's kind of, for somebody who doesn't have those skills, it's blows my mind.
Yeah.
He's working on a bathroom for us right now, and I'm watching him and I'm thinking, this is not a job that's going to get disrupted anytime soon.
Yeah.
And you know, we think about our kids going to college. He has some innate skills, some confidence, and the curiosity to, you know, do a little YouTubing. It's just going to be, it's like a whole new chapter.
Totally. Okay, so Anna, I am curious. So you were one of the last people from our supper club, actually, that was still in an operating role. I'm in one again, but I took an 18-month sabbatical. Everybody else had left their chief people officer roles, a lot of them because of burnout during the pandemic. What's next for you?
So first of all, it's been 3 weeks.
Fair. You got braces.
I got braces. That's
like, exciting.
It was a big deal. The real honest, like very unsexy answer is that I'm catching up on like 10 years of life administration, right? Like a girlfriend of mine today called it like deferred life maintenance, right? So I'm doing a lot of that. I'm also like, I feel like a lot of people helped me out over the last I mean, really the last 25 years, but like many, many years and during my tenure at Asana. So I'm trying to seek some of those folks out to say thank you. And like, so I'm doing something like that would have never made my top 10 list, you know, like any given week as I set my priorities. I'm like a really proud San Franciscan. And so it's just been like a deep joy to see so much rejuvenation.
It's amazing, isn't it?
It's just, I feel so vindicated. You know, when I think back on 2020, all of these people that were like educated in the Bay Area, made all of their money in the Bay Area, and then just like left. And then left. And they were so loud about it, right? So loud.
Now they all want to come back.
And particularly, frankly, these venture capitalists who are like, San Francisco's dead. I'm going to Wyoming.
Anna, we love venture capitalists.
We love venture capitalists, especially. We happen to be in the office of a venture capitalist in the city of San Francisco, which is amazing.
Who stayed here, though.
Who stayed.
Yes.
But so many of them were loud about their exit to Florida and to Texas and blah, blah, blah. And
I have no idea who you're talking about, Anna.
So it's just been a joy, and I'm starting to get a little bit involved in local government, and you know, exploring what I can do to help, whether it's through a commission or some of the downtown revitalization work. I'm thrilled to be doing that. I'm on the board of Culture Amp, so I'm one of the 3 independents on that board. And you know, the work waxes and wanes, and we all as a group have a lot of work to do on that board, and it's a pleasure to be able to lean a little bit more into that. I'm helping some of the venture firms that I'm associated with, and helping some of their CEOs think about what an HR leader might look like. I have a I was going to say I have a senior. I refer to her often as a 17-year-old, but next week she is going to turn 18 years old. So spending as much time as possible there. And we'll see. Like you know, we were joking earlier that, like, you know, a good workout and a nice lunch with a friend is half your day.
Yes,
so,
it is.
I'm reveling in that inefficiency.
Well, that's great. Enjoy it.
Thank you. Thank you.
I've got some good books to pass over to you.
Bringing it full circle, I think a lot about that group and the relationships that we formed. And it is, you know, somebody said to me in a kind of funny way, the pandemic was a tough time to be an HR lady.
Yeah.
Thanks. But I think about some of those folks, right? Like, couple people left HR and went to, went and did business roles.
Yep.
One of them was unceremoniously fired, you know, and it was the front page of the Wall Street Journal. Couple people just pieced out and said, I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not doing it. I'm just like leaving the industry. Yeah.
To be fair, I don't know that it's necessarily getting easier. I think the challenges, you know, the challenges that started, 2020 feels like a pivotal year in HR. It's not that HR was ever easy, but it certainly became much more challenging. And I think the expectations about the problems we were expected to solve became very different. And that's great in many ways. I think we were looked to more as transformational leaders and people who were trusted to make decisions that, quite frankly, were very unexpected
Unprecedented.
and unprecedented. That's been a good shift in a lot of ways, but I think there's also, with so much uncertainty and with AI, the expectations continue to be really challenging. So can I ask you a last question, which is, what advice do you have to founders and CEOs who may be working with, a HR leader they want to retain, and how should they partner most effectively with their chief people officer or head of HR, head of people, et cetera?
I think an amazing chief people officer is a business person first and has impact on the business through that people function. It goes both ways, right? If you're around the executive team table in that weekly meeting or whatever it is that your forum is not the HR person who should be raising and framing the cultural issues. It's a full team sport. And if the CEO or other leaders are looking to the HR person to say, well, how are the employees going to feel about this? That's the wrong question. We are too sophisticated as business leaders in technology to outsource that to an HR person. I'm so glad you invited me to do this.
I'm so glad you joined.
It's so fun. And what a unique format. And I feel like we did our catch up. We don't even need to go have supper anymore.
I know. Although I will say, it's a little bit of a bummer that now that you have time to go have nice long lunches, I don't have the time to do that. But maybe we can catch up over a hike or lunch on a Saturday or Sunday sometime soon.